Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Tara Haskins, and I am the Total Farmer Health Director at AgriSafe. I am also a registered nurse of 39 years and an advanced holistic nurse. I am coming to you from North Louisiana. I live in Shreveport, and I'll tell you a little bit about AgriSafe in just a moment. I worked in healthcare for a very long time. Also worked for a very long time in mental health and taught nursing. And so my additional role, in addition to Total Farmer Health Director, is that I'm also the behavioral health lead at AgriSafe. And I'm really proud to be here today. I'm so excited that I was contacted to provide this presentation. And the request was so timely because, as you can see here on my lead slide, this year is the International Year of the Woman Farmer. And so I'm going to share some information with you, and I've got a couple of really nice surprises, some videos for our audience today. So in terms of the International Year of the Woman Farmer, the United Nations designated 2026 as the International Year of the Woman Farmer because they wanted to give our global community a chance to highlight the fact and celebrate with all of us the incredibly important role that women play in ensuring our global food security. And that has been happening here in the United States since this country was founded. Women have been involved in agriculture. And in terms of AgriSafe, we really focus on the health and safety of the work of ag. We've had a longstanding focus on women. We are an organization that is headed up by both professional public health professionals, as well as nurses and a variety of other specialties. So, who is AgriSafe? Please visit our website, agrisafe.org. We are a national nonprofit in agricultural safety and health, and we focus on training healthcare professionals as well as people that work in ag about the inherent risks that exist in agricultural work. And this is our tagline, protecting the people who feed the world. And we're really proud of that tagline, and we take it to heart. How do we do the work that we do as a national organization? Well, we are a virtual organization. We pride ourselves in sourcing talent across the United States. So we may have employees or staff with AgriSafe that are in Virginia, in Minnesota, in Nebraska, and in our home office is in Covington, Louisiana. But AgriSafe does a lot of work nationally. We partner with a lot of academic institutions, departments of ag, federal agencies, other nonprofits that work in the space of both agriculture and ag safety and health. And we also work really closely with large and small commodity groups to bring our trainings to their membership. AgriSafe established a partnership with NIOSH many years ago. And we feel like it is our job to maintain a culture of readiness. In today's climate, with disasters or unexpected and uncontrollable issues and factors that exist so much in agriculture, it is critical that we stay abreast and ahead of what is happening so that we can provide the information that ag producers as well as healthcare professionals need. This is our model, the Total Farmer Health model. I mentioned that we are work closely with NIOSH, and we are an affiliate of Total Worker Health, which is a department within NIOSH, the National Institutes of Occupational Safety and Health. And we worked really closely with them, and with their permission, built out the Total Farmer Health model. Why did we do this? Well, we felt like the Total Worker Health model was certainly applicable, but there were aspects of agriculture that were not addressed in that model. And so what you see in front of you is sort of the way that we group our information. It's also the way that we talk about the inherent risk and or the factors that impact the health of all agricultural producers, including women. If you look at this model in the center is a picture of a family. Over 95% of farms in the United States are family-owned farms, whether they are small, medium, or large family farms. And that brings a very unique dynamic when it comes to communication, business dealings, health, safety of family members. Many family members work on these farms. They live on the place where they work. And so we know that agriculture being one of the most dangerous occupations out there, it's very critical that we try to maintain safety, and we also need to maintain their health because many of the individuals working in agriculture are oftentimes the average age right now, according to the last USDA census, was 58.8 years of age. And a large proportion of those are working well past retirement age, both male and females. The buckets that you see in front of you are just, we consider that like big topic areas. And so if you were to come to our website, you would see these things reflected in our content. We don't feel like that anyone is more important than the other. So please don't assume the size of the circle denotes more importance. That's mostly for visual or aesthetic purposes. But our content tries to address these as it applies to agriculture. So let's get down and drill down to women in agriculture. First, I want to kind of move our view out to the United States, and then I want to hone in on Georgia. So the 2022 USDA census found that across the United States, there were 1.2 million female producers in the United States. Now, that was a really critical year for the recognition of female producers because before that, the way that data was collected at USDA, there was opportunity to not identify the female role as a producer. If you remember on the previous slide, I talked about the number of families that work in ag, and women are doing a lot of this work. And I've got a slide that will share that with you. Of the contributions of female producers in the United States, over 407,000 acres are owned by women as well. They have a huge impact of the United States economy and for food production. And look at that number. The last USDA census, 2022, 38.7% of American farmers are women. So we are out there. They are doing this work. They are innovating. They are serving communities. And Georgia is certainly doing that in spades. Now, I would like to sort of identify the distinction between a producer and a farm worker. A producer, the term that we use, tends to designate the owner of a farm, the individual that typically owns the land, but also plays a large role in both the financial and strategic decisions within a farm production. A farm worker or a farm laborer, that may be more familiar to you in terms of migrant farm workers or individuals that are hired by producers to do that work. So that brings certainly another dynamic in that producers are also employers, and they contribute much to our rural communities. They are economic drivers in our rural communities. They are leaders in our rural communities. And women are certainly playing a very important role in that. In the state of Georgia, according to the 2022 USDA census, there were over 23,000 female producers. If you look at some of the statistics that I have here on this slide, there were some interesting dynamics that happened that we saw in the 2022 data. In 2022, it was noted that there were 3% less male farmers in the state of Georgia compared to 2017. But look what happened to the number of women. There was a 2% increase across the board noted in 2022. When we look at a category that is designated new and beginning producers, and how that is defined is somebody that has been farming less than 10 years, the number of female producers in Georgia increased by 5%. That is a sharp contrast to the drop in male, new, and beginning farmers, where that increase was only 1%. What are women in Georgia doing in agriculture? You name it. They are doing anything from fruits such as peaches, blueberries, vegetables, specialty crops, corn, soybeans, cotton, peanuts, flowers, herbs, grape growers for wine production, livestock. You have Carolyn Ford and Sabrina Edward, who are Edwards with Roe Edward Farms that are raising Black Angus cattle in South Georgia. And then you have these ladies shown here, where I'm going to share a little bit more about their story. Lindy Savell at the top, a citrus grower in the state of Georgia, and Dr. Connie Baptiste, who has a diversified farm. And both of these women are really connected and are mentors in their communities. So what are women doing on the farm? Well, what are they not doing? That's probably where and so this is an interesting slide from the USDA, kind of gives you a breakdown of male versus female. Within the slide, the female is your darker blue, the male is the lighter blue, and this is involvement in decision making from the 2022 USDA statistics. So in day-to-day decision making, 90% of the male farmers, the distinction is there's a slightly more percentage of them that are making day-to-day decisions, but 78 is certainly nothing to sneeze at. We see particularly male, and probably mostly generated by the large number of them, of some of these other farm decision-making categories. I will tell you that women are out there doing it all. I have talked to women that are also producers. We have a couple that work for AgriSafe, Jessie Grote up in northern Nebraska and Linda Emanuel in north center Nebraska, closer to Omaha. And these ladies are not only doing their work with AgriSafe, but they are out there walking fence lines. They are out there taking care of livestock. They are in large tractors, getting the harvest out of the field, fixing drip lines. They are doing it all. One role where females tend to be placed in is the record keeping and financial management. We see them do that a lot, as well as the management of livestock and estate and succession planning. I have a few more distinctions about women that I'll share with you, certainly. So what about women farm workers? Well, I did do some research to try to identify what are the number of women farm workers in the state of Georgia. And I couldn't come up with a number. But I think it's important for us to understand, and this dynamic probably certainly plays out in Georgia, the rate of women who are farm workers has increased by 55% since 2009. And this makes up almost a quarter of all farm workers, whether they are migrant workers, immigrant workers, or U.S. citizen workers that are employees of our producers and on our farms. The average age of a woman farm laborer and sorter, that's a category of a farm worker, is 39.5 years. And almost 40% of them are over the age of 44. This is also a very significant representation of women as farm managers, inspectors, and supervisors. Farm work can include picking and sorting crops, but farm workers also play a role in working with livestock, in animal husbandry nurseries on the farm with swine and with cattle. And so what are the distinction of the issues in terms of health and safety with farm workers? Well, if you think about picking and sorting, certainly ergonomics plays a huge role. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the disconnect that we have for adapting work for women. But for farm workers, particularly, of great concern for women farm workers is sexual harassment at work, because they are working in a very male-dominated area or field. Women producers, as well as women farm workers, have to contend with pregnancy and the risk to the unborn fetus related to the work that they do, gender discrimination, and also the extra role of being the primary caregiver of children. So there is a lot of work being done to advocate on behalf of women farm workers. So because we know that this role in a male-dominated field places them as a disadvantage to not only report violations in terms of farm workers, report discrimination and or working conditions. So let's talk a little bit about women's health and safety. AgriSafe does a lot of work in this space. As I mentioned before, the reproductive cycle of women also poses additional concerns related to the risk in agriculture. There is both acute and chronic pesticide exposures. When women are working many times with chemicals and pesticides, and then they return home to provide childcare and caregiving, maybe to older parents, we worry about those exposures being transferred into the home environment. We know that there's a lot of concern about chronic bronchitis related to the respiratory risk that we see in non-smoking farm women. Additional pregnancy-related risk may be the care of livestock, where they're tasked with giving hormone injections. So the risk of needle sticks to women, as well as those injections may not only include antibiotics for livestock, but it could also be hormone injections related to the production of livestock. And so if a woman is in childbearing years and gets exposure to some of those hormones, that can be significant risk to the fetus. Additionally, the work that's done typically outside, there are a lot of exposures to zoonotic diseases, as well as ticks and other vector-borne illnesses related to mosquitoes that can have particular risk for women of childbearing years. The farm-related work injuries are of great concern, especially related to some of the issues of not having tools that are designed for a woman's frame, as in addition to the clothing, all the way down to the clothing that they wear, the protective equipment that they have to wear to protect themselves from these exposures. And so when we talk to women, we try to hone in on the things that we can give them information to, encourage them to use protective equipment, get protective equipment that fits them, fits their face, such as a mask, goggles. So the women's health and safety aspect, certainly there are common threads with the risk and exposures to men, but there are also unique issues. So let's talk just a little bit about some of the other social and economic issues that we see impacting women in agriculture. And as you remember on the model, we feel like that all of these factors play a very holistic role in the role of women in ag. We know that many times producers have to take off-farm work in order to make ends meet. They may take off-farm work in addition just to get healthcare coverage. If you think about a producer being a business owner, if you have to secure your own health insurance, we all know the challenges that exist in that. And the last couple of years have been pretty unsettled in terms of market prices for life insurance. But that off-farm work brings other issues, right? Exhaustion, managing two really full-time jobs in order to get the work done. And sometimes women in the producer role or maybe co-producer role, it's them that are getting these more full-time off-farm jobs. But then when they come home, they are tasked with doing work on the farm. The daily risk that I just shared with the dust exposures, the zoonotic diseases, adverse pregnancy outcomes, perinatal illnesses, the challenges of mismatch of ergonomics in farm work, not having tools that work well with female, or running large equipment where they have to have boosters just to be able to get up on the equipment, and of course, the proper clothing and PPE. But also, in addition to that, if we look at the strength of women compared to that of men, the upper body strength of a female is 40 to 75% less than that of their male counterparts, and the lower body strength is 5 to 30% less than that for males. Why does this matter? Well, this matters when females are using equipment or tools that are not designed for women, are tasked with moving heavy objects, which is commonplace in agriculture, or caring for livestock and animals. Large animals sometimes can pose additional risk when you're trying to navigate moving that livestock around, being around livestock. In addition to that, we know that work life and family life intersect 24/7, never giving women a break from that. Many of them live on the farm, manage the home life, as well as helping to manage what their tasks are on the farm. They typically live in rural communities, which we know that there's a lack of mental health providers in those communities. Women, even though they live in rural communities, many of them are surrounded by a lot of land. And while a rural community can be very nurturing in terms of knowing your neighbors, seeing people that you know on a regular basis, you spend a lot of time alone. And so lack of social support, lack of quality childcare, which has been one of the hot topic buttons we're hearing from females of some of the significant issues when women do not have appropriate childcare that allow them to do the work they need to do on the farm. They find themselves in position of having to care for children while maybe walking fence rows or managing livestock. And so it can be very, very stressful. And then, of course, as women age, we have concerns across the life spectrum. And as I mentioned, the average age of a farmer is 58.8. That includes females. And a large number of those are past retirement age that most of us look forward to and enjoy. They are still doing the work into their 60s, their 70s, and their 80s. And so this is where osteoporosis and osteopenia play a huge role, especially with the large number of musculoskeletal injuries and ergonomic mismatches that we see in agricultural work. So what about female farmers' stress levels? Well, those culturally driven stresses affect a female farmer's mental health. There has been research that has found that farm women experience higher rates of stress in males in regard to farm operations and the physical, social, and financial well-being of all family members. In addition to their farm duties, again, they are responsible for household tasks, childcare, doing those off-farm errands, picking up parts for farm machinery. They are oftentimes placed in the role of also being the caregiver for aging parents. And aging parents in our farms in the United States, many of them are still involved in the work of the farm. And when you look at that dynamic, also being placed in rural communities where we are losing rural hospitals, we have less services that can serve both across the lifespan, not only women that are in their reproductive years specific pediatric care, but also elder care and the burden of caring for and the challenge of caring for older parents that may be entering some phases of dementia. Another really important piece of research I thought I'd share with you is they've done some studies to find out in these partnership dynamics of either partner or spouse, however that's addressed, how do those different roles see their support of their partner? Research finds that while men have expressed that farm women, they do feel traditionally supported by farm women within their partnership. Farm women do not find that similar support from their husbands. So some interesting dynamics as we go forward, and things to consider when healthcare professionals have a farm, a female farmer sitting in their office. These are some of the things that they may be dealing with but not voicing, and but are causing significant stress. As I said, this is there's data that suggests that farmers are more likely to live in close proximity and have contact with their parents and parents-in-law. Many farms are multi-generational, meaning we have younger farmers, those children that have come back to farm with dad, as well as dad's dad or their mother's parents. There are a lot of farms that we see interconnection between both the maternal and the paternal grandparents that are still involved in farming. And while family can provide a lot of support for that farm enterprise, those roles can be blurred between work and home. Family problems can become work problems really quickly, or vice versa. And this leads to a lot of family tension, such as sibling rivalry, favoritism, miscommunication. Conflict can happen over money, pay, benefits, quality of treatment. It can also lead to a lot of relational strain and can sometimes remain unresolved if they're not addressed. Who is oftentimes finding themselves in the role of the mediator or asked to address some of these very challenging issues? The females. The females typically are the communicators. They are the ones that try to maintain connection with all family members. They are knitting together their role of producer as well as daughter, mother. And so conflicts related to ownership issues are a real source of stress and also place an additional burden on female producers. Each generation is going to eventually have their own views as to how that farm should be managed. Those are some of those communication dynamics that also can create a lot of conflict. Farmers, both male and female, are likely to work well past retirement, well past menopause for our female producers. That increased risk for fall is high given the environment that they working in barns, uneven terrain, climbing in and out of large pieces of equipment. Bone strength is really critical to meet the demands of the job. And so we try to address the needs of the aging farmer, and we have several webinars that you could come and learn more about some of the injury prevention in ag for aging farmers. I wanted to spend just a little time talking about the term kin keeping. So kin keeping is a term that was coined by a sociologist back in 1985. And what this was designed to describe is the female activity that is involved in maintaining and enhancing family ties. For many of you, when I start talking about some of the tasks that are involved in this, you will probably think, yes, I do that. This is typically the role of females in most families, not just farming, but we talk about this because of that sort of blurring of the lines of the role as a female producer, as well as this kin-keeping role, which can bring on its own source of stressors. So things such as gifts for family, creating magic during the holidays, coordinating events, meal times, gatherings, mediating those family conflicts, refereeing disagreements, keeping track of health needs and medications for family members, passing on family stories, which is critical, right? Because that passes on our culture and our knowledge, even down to sharing those treasured recipes that we don't know that's appreciated as our children are smaller, but then they come back to us and say, "Hey, Mom, how do you make that dressing?" And so continuing and really creating family traditions, which is what is keeping families glued together. 91% of holiday time celebratory gatherings are really all due to the coordination of a female. Many of this information has been passed down from grandmother to a mother, oftentimes to the daughter. They may oftentimes feel devalued and unnoticed. Sometimes people don't recognize the effort that it takes to plan and prep. This also goes along with maintaining both work as well as personal life commitments, especially when you are managing two or more sides of a family. This role can be very emotionally heavy and time consuming and can impact your mental well-being, can create emotional exhaustion, guilt, resentment, frustration, and eventually burnout. I think the positive, I've said a lot of the task and how it doesn't go unnoticed. I think it's oftentimes important. We need to recognize why is this kin keeping happening? And really the crux is that it is rooted in love, and it is in a desire to keep the family together, to create stronger families and stronger rural communities. So when we usually share this information, we say, what can we do to help our kin keepers? Acknowledge and appreciate their efforts, take over tasks off of her plate, develop a partnership to take an ownership to their own side of the family. And so that way we can all play a role in keeping that familial glue together. The definitions of family has changed over decades. That it certainly affects the scope and definition of our kin keepers. But there's also a role that our kin keepers can do to try to help minimize their own stress. They need to set expectations, maybe recruit help for some of the tasks that they feel like they are always expected to do. Children can be given age-appropriate tasks, as well as the aged members of the family to contribute. All can play a role in kin keeping and aim toward reducing the strain and diminishing the chaos. Teaching those skills to family members who may lack communication skills, maybe compassion, doing that with certainly empathy. Many individuals in family don't come by these traits naturally. So also creating a tolerance for new ideas, being flexible and embracing maybe new ways to do things. Maybe the dressing doesn't have to be made a certain way. And recognizing that when kin keeping is becoming stressful, be sure that we take care of ourselves, take a time out. Self-care should be a priority, and practices should be managed with minimal guilt. And at all costs, keep things simple. Overcomplicating these events can lead to unnecessary stress and take away from the main purpose of meaningful connection. So now I would like for you, our audience, to hear from a couple of female producers from the state of Georgia. The first one I'd like to share with you is Lindy Savell. She is in Georgia grown citrus. My apologies. I guess Georgia is misspelled. I recognize that. My apologies. And she is also part of Jonina Farm in Georgia. So let's just hear from Lindy.
So I grew up actually on a tobacco farm. And yeah, and so then I said, no way am I doing this. No way. I'm not farming. I'm not having any part of doing this. And so I ultimately spent over a span of 34 years in federal law enforcement. and retired. And my husband and I are like, now what do we do? So we had these two small farms in South Georgia. So we said, let's go back to the farm, go back to our roots. And we are neck deep in citrus farming.
Can you tell me what is the most challenging part of what you do now?
We've had to totally change the way we think, um, which has been challenging, as far as making your mind say, this is we're going to be okay doing this. Because when you cut down 250 full grown trees that are producing 450 pounds of fruit a year, that's hard to swallow.
I can imagine after all the work that went in to get those trees there and established to make that brave decision. Okay, we
Yeah.
shift here, In terms of also like health and safety. So what things, what aspects of that were things you had to think about, or things you weren't expecting to occur, like with your body or your health or your safety?
As far as things that I had never thought about, citrus has thorns. It scratches you, it cuts you. And I have been so good about covering my, you know, face and skin with either sunscreen or pretty much long sleeves because of the sun and the thorns.
How do you take care of your own mental well-being with the stress of the farm? And
One of the things that I like to do is I still, well, I wouldn't call it running anymore because it's more like a, a jog.
I hear
But
you.
but that is the one thing that helps me organize my day or just kind of get my attitude in the right perspective.
What are the gifts that more mature women in agriculture bring in terms of ensuring the health and safety of agriculture?
I think we bring perspective, and maybe in an opportunity to not just be in tunnel vision, but to have a heads up approach. And if you just kind of step back and kind of use your experiences along the way to say, well, this didn't exactly go the way I thought it was going to go, but it worked out just fine and maybe even better.
So all of we have these interviews were probably about 45 minutes long. We're going to be interviewing female women farmers across the United States, all across International Year of the Woman Farmer. And you can find these full interviews at agrisafe.org /IYWF. Now, I want to share with you a snippet of an interview that I did with Dr. Connie Baptiste. I've known Connie now for quite a while. She's actually served on our diversity board with AgriSafe. She is a mental health warrior and is doing a lot in her community. She's down in Cobbtown, Georgia, and she is the owner of Hunter Family Farm.
I have such a varied background that a lot of people don't realize how interconnected they all are, and it driven me to the path of returning to agriculture. I am a 20-year Air Force veteran, came out and went into another field. So I've been a chef for 20 years. And after that, I decided to return to agriculture. I'm a fourth generation farmer. I am the first one to actually own the land that I will farm. I laughingly say it, And then I had to stop myself and really think about that I was born, literally born in a sharecropper's cabin,
Wow.
a two-room cabin 63 years ago. And I am back because agriculture has been in my blood literally since birth. I was reading an article on women farmers and breast cancer.
Okay.
And they were talking about how a lot of us don't think about PPEs
Mhm.
because let's face it, most of them are not made for us. The coveralls that you may don when you're mixing fertilizer is too big and too cumbersome. So you think it just takes me too long and I got to rig it up. So I'm only going to be here a second and I'll mix it up and do it. But what women don't realize is that little bit of time with that fertilizer exposes them to so many dynamics that show up in our body, from birth defects to the raised number of those of us that can be exposed to breast cancer, those that get it. And because of that exposure, it's more aggressive. And because of the true nature of farming, a lot of them don't have good health insurance. So there are so many things that may have been offset by taking the time to put on PPE, but it's again, it's shifting how people think.
What do you think needs more? Now, you talked about some that needs more attention, but what do you think in the health of women in agriculture needs more attention?
Um, I really think that we're going to have to start focusing on and making it an everyday conversation about mental wellness
Mhm.
and not mental health, even though mental wellness falls under the mental health umbrella. We've got to start using mental wellness like we talk about physical wellness
Mhm.
and making sure that people understand what that means and how that affects your day to day.
So I just want to acknowledge the immense gratitude for both Lindy and Connie to speak with us and come and hear the full. There's a lot more great stuff in there. Women talking about their role in agriculture, and as I said, we're going to be adding to that. But come and hear watch those full interviews. So I'm going to shift a little bit and talk about what we do for women in AgriSafe. What are some of the materials that we produce and programming that we have? And when I first came to AgriSafe in 2020, this was one of the first things I saw. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. And Linda Emanuel is one that is pictured. She is the co-producer of her 3-generational family farm in Nebraska. She's also our agricultural health liaison, as well as a registered nurse. And they developed these posters because they said, to talk about exercise and the importance of that, agriculture is certainly physically strenuous. What we don't talk about enough is the stretching and the importance of that to our musculoskeletal health as well as safety. And I will tell you, if I am at an event, and we have these both in small print, but we also have them in posters. And the idea is that people could put these posters in the barn where they work, take a break, use a farm implement or the side of a fence, do a few stretches to sort of stop, rest, relax, and enhance their flexibility and decrease the risk of injury. When I have these posters on a table, they fly. The women come up and they're rolling them up and sticking them in their bags. So this is a way that we sort of adapted the knowledge that we know and the importance of this activity for musculoskeletal health and really designed it to meet the needs of women. I will tell you, we do have some men that will pick these up as well. And we've heard side stories from daughters and wives that they've actually caught them in there doing some of these stretches. So This is another great design that Linda was involved in, using some of those flexibility to show on the body what this stretch does and how it impacts and which muscles it impacts. So a great illustration. This is usually on the back side of that poster. Another really female forward, I think, design. Head to toe protection. We talk about the different types of exposures that females have and how they can protect themselves. I will tell you that anything that I'm going to show you that's a printable resource, you can come to our website, print it for free. You just access it. If you have trouble finding it, you can reach out to me or go to info@agrisafe.org and print any of these for yourself or to use in any gatherings that you're going to have with women in agriculture, or have in your office ready to hand to a female producer that's there for other things. Have these resources available. We've done a lot of work in reproductive health resources and webinars. This is another great one. If you are an working at OBGYN, you work in women's health, in public health related to women's health, this is a really good front and back that discusses the different types of reproductive health exposures in agriculture and how that impacts women. And then on the flip side, it talks about how the use, you heard Connie talk about the importance and use of PPE in protecting us from both short-term and long-term health risk. Again, this is printable from our website. We are heavy into the year 2026, promoting the International Year of the Woman Farmer. We have a webpage designed for that. You can go to that webpage, and we will be populating that throughout the year with a lot of these resources, toolkits, as well as the interviews that we're doing with producers across the U.S., which we have started. Our first two were in the state of Georgia. Some other trainings that might be of interest to this audience, depending on what your role is in healthcare. We have an AgriSafe Nurse Scholar program. This is a very in-depth series of professional development provided by experts. The content is experts in the field of ag safety and health across the United States. We just recently, I believe, capped out some new funded seats. We had a funder that came in and said, we want to get this to as many nurses as we can. Look for additional seats coming open really soon. It is on demand. It's done virtually at your own pace. It can help nurses increase their competencies. If you serve farmers in the ag workforce, I highly recommend this training. If you are living in rural communities, I promise you, you've got a lot of intersections with people doing this work. So as nurses, this can really ramp up your competency and understanding, and you will be more equipped to ask better questions of the patients that you see. Oh, we've been doing this training now since 2019. My first introduction to AgriSafe was the AgriSafe Nurse Scholar. I can't speak highly about enough. Even after being a nurse for over 30 years, when I took this course, I learned so much that there's nowhere you can get this kind of information in a nursing program or just in your working in the hospital. My standout chapter for me was the zoonotic diseases. I learned so much. And we have other nurses that are singing its praises. If you are a community health worker, currently right now, we are offering professional development for community health workers. This training, we're hoping to eventually get to over 10 hours of continuing ed on topics. Right now, we already have some available to you. And it's going to be on topics, mental health, vaccinations. Right now, these trainings for community health workers are free. We had a sort of a pilot foundational funding grant that helped us to get this up and running. We are getting continuing ed credits from the University of Texas at Tyler, who has a community health worker program. So they are CEs specific to community health workers. And some of them, if you're are actually approved by DSHS of the state of Texas. So come to this if you're a community health worker. If you check on your free account with AgriSafe that you're a community health worker, then you get access into this and are able to take these at no cost. In addition to that, we have our training called Farm Response. Farm Response is an online learning program. This was one of my first projects when I came to AgriSafe in 2020. And this is in the mental health space. You can look here and see that the topics that we have, this was designed for healthcare professionals in mind. We have probably right now close to 11 designation of healthcare professionals that have specific CEs for those professionals that you can use for licensure renewal or to build your competencies. This training was the first of its kind and the only that I still know that exists in the Suicide Prevention Research Center's Best Practice Registry. We were very proud of that distinction. This required evaluation of the survey results following the trainings of over 500 learners. To get this, we have an article published on the effectiveness of farm response. The training is delivered on demand. It is in a chapter format, so you can come and go. It's probably about a 3.5 hour audio running time. For some individuals, it may take as long as 5 hours, depending on how slow you like to go and take notes. And the states that you see shaded here currently right now have seats at no cost. So you may be eligible to take this for free. So come and take Farm Response and join the over close to now 3,000 individuals across the United States that have taken this training. Oh, and one last, this is available for community health workers. And once you complete the training, you get the Farm Response badge, which you can put on your signature line or on any marketing materials to show that you have really invested time in wanting to know more and play a larger role in agricultural mental health. And we want to encourage you to get engaged with us. We have stuff coming out all the time. It doesn't, you can get a free membership. It doesn't have to cost you anything. You can get on our newsletter. We have some great information. We can link you to other resources across the United States. And just follow us on all of our socials. And I want to thank you for having spent this time with you. Please reach out to me if you need to ask questions. My email is here, or you can please go to our website, look at what we have. There's a lot, so it may take more than one time to kind of get a good understanding of what we offer. If you have any questions, you can always email info@agrisafe.org. And thank you again for playing a role in the health and safety of women in ag in Georgia. Thank you so much.